The hour joins us now, and it's really bittersweet to see you go. I've really enjoyed working with you, but the rest of the show is dedicated to you.
Are you nervous? Because I'm nervous.
No, I'm shaking in my boots.
What does it feel like sitting here and knowing that this is your last day on the air at ITV?
Everybody's been asking me that. I don't know what to say. One thing I will say, however, is that I have to get working on those cards. There's
lots of them.
And my poor wife, Carmen, she's going to be put to work, figuring all these things.
Licking the stamp.
She's the manager. She manages all this sort of stuff.
Well, you know what? Speaking of cards, Bill, we have received dozens of letters, emails, and faxes from your fans since you announced your retirement.
But there is one that stands out just a little bit. Take a look at this. You remember this. This picture was emailed to ITV News the other day. It came from a couple of ladies out in Fort Simpson, Northwest Territories. And they're claiming, they say, it's a picture of Bill in the 1940s while he was with the Signal Corps. This photo belongs to Helen Westmoreland. That's wife of the late Westy Westmoreland.
Does that make any sense to you at all?
Yes, I know Westy Westmoreland, a very good friend of mine. He and I were signalmen. I wasn't in the Army. He was in the Army, the Royal Canadian Corps of Signals.
Right.
And I worked with him, and every day.
You remember that picture? What were you doing?
Yes, I do remember that picture. Look at that head of hair on that. Isn't that marvelous? Oh,
state-of-the-art technology. You got the old wind-up phone in the background and everything.
A few of the astute observers in the ITV newsroom raised an interesting question when they saw that vintage picture of you, Bill. They wondered if you were really the Dean of Weather.
Dean of Weather.
Or James Dean.
Could it be?
How do you explain this, Bill?
You're absolutely right. Well, I had a wonderful time up in there, and that country was in 1949.
Yeah.
That we were up there, so...
Well, you know what? There's a whole bunch more to come here,
yeah,
Bill.
for sure. Bill has been delivering the weather information for all of us here from ITV since 1976.
Yeah, straight ahead, we're going to look back at the Dean of Weather's career at ITV, and we'll have some surprises as well. Stay with us.
Seems like 2¼ centuries of doing the weather on ITV. He joined us in the days of the wood-burning transmitter. And the one thing that I have to say about Bill is that in all the years we spent together, I think we did about 7,500 newscasts together. Bill, every day that he arrived at work, was happy and cheerful, ready with a smile and a joke and a quip. He was never down, never crabby, no matter what the circumstances. And Bill, of course, left a huge impression on all of us. Now, his hair wasn't combed every day, but he was always there and was educating us about what really was going on in the weather. And you, of course, all know about the Idaho High and gathering rosebuds and all the rest of it. But you may not remember Virga, and you may not know what a monadnock is. But if you paid close attention over the years, Bill would have told you. Happy retirement, Bill. We'll miss you.
There are dark-ring shadows moving on the weather map tonight, ladies and gentlemen. That dreaded of all meteorological phenomenon, the Siberian High. Why, you ask? Because over here, we have nothing but a great, big, fat, avuncular, high-pressure area. We gather ye rosebuds while ye may.
I'm Bob Layton. Bill Matheson hangs him up on ITV News at 6.
Your retirement, I can't believe that after 145 years in broadcasting, you've decided that now is the time to hang it up. I don't know what's more impressive about your career, the fact that you went from Lethbridge to New York and worked with the young Geraldo, the fact that you were voted the best weatherman in the world, or maybe the fact for about 30-some years of your career you hung on the same building as Brian Hall and somehow survived. Whatever it was a joy growing up watching you in Edmonton. It was unbelievable to share the set with you, and it truly was a learning pleasure for me to hang out with you, Bill. All the best to you in your retirement. Congratulations to you.
Hey, Bill, you always used to say, keep your eye on the Idaho High. Well, hey, that's what I did. I came down south here, and look what I ran into. The dreaded of all meteorological phenomena, the mother low. Bill, I hear you're retiring. I'm sorry to see you go. You're a great weatherman, a great entertainer, and you've always been a great friend. Good luck.
Well, my pretty, and you out there too. You probably think the weather's going to get warmer. Well, it's not.
It is the stage. But strange. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our weather for this evening. Boo!
I'm going to always miss Bill just coming into the newsroom. You brighten everything up. You try to figure out how to work the stapler on my desk.
You know what? Bill is the master of the show tune. Honestly, you must have them locked into your mind.
Oh, I like Broadway show tunes. There's no doubt about that at all.
And get him reciting poetry. He won't stop.
Yeah,
Amazing memory.
I must read you this thing. It's from a little girl, and she says, Here's to Bill. He's true blue. He's the weatherman through and through. He's a colorful weatherman, so they say, going straight to heaven and not the other way.
Oh,
Linda.
there you go.
There's your namesake.
And a very smart young woman.
I've been getting all kinds of stuff. The whole spectrum, you know, young people, old people.
And you have to answer every one of them.
Oh, yes, I know.
And that's just going to take up the next
Thanks
5
for
minutes.
reminding me about it.
But as we mentioned earlier, Bill's been prognosticating the Idaho highs and Siberian lows here at ITV since 1976.
Oh yeah, and from the very beginning, he's offered his own unique perspective on the weather map. Here's Jennifer Warren now with a trip down Bill's memory lane.
She gets too hungry for dinner.
You always know when Bill is just around the corner. You can hear him coming. He makes time for everyone, and everyone has time for him.
And yes, that's got to be the best in the world. There we have
In the
it.
24 years, I've never seen him come into work upset. He's always been in an upbeat, happy mood, and he's always treated people very, very well here, and he'll be terribly missed.
Bill started at ITV in 1976. From the start, he had his own style. He never saw the weather as statistics. He thought the numbers needed personalities.
When we talk about that most dreaded of all meteorological phenomena, the Siberian high, then we have our Idaho high here. Then, the mother low, always sitting in the Gulf of Alaska. I found that it does pay off, I think, to try to make a little more real live stuff going on the weather map so that people can understand what is going on.
In 1995, the payoff was even bigger.
Bill Matheson, ITV Canada.
Bill was declared the best weatherman in the world. He went all the way to Paris to receive his award. There were 70 other competitors. Each one used a colorful, technical display.
You know, all sorts of gadgetry, all of the temperature going up, beep, 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 and down it went. There was a little bird at the end of it, you know, all this kind of stuff. But when you went by, when these people were listening to all this, nobody was laughing.
Bill is not into gadgetry. With just a marker and a weather map, his weathercast captured the judge's attention.
I was just walking by when they're being examined, and all of a sudden there was a great roar. And I looked at it, and yeah, it was my tape that was playing, so.
Around ITV, Bill's signature is known as the bang stick.
Good evening. I banged it. It was purely spontaneous, you see. And I banged it, and that's the weather for his evening. Bang. Good evening.
At one point, a manager suggested Bill should forget the stick. He stopped using it.
We were besieged with all kinds of people, cards and telephone calls. Where's the stick? When's he going to do the stick? So we had to stick with it. So open sesame.
Bill's map and stick will retire with him, marking the end of an era in weathercasting. Jennifer Warren, ITV News at 6.
Good evening.
How did you develop the stick, the bang? Did that just sort of come along with time?
I just did it as a gimmick one time. I hadn't planned on it, you know. But every time they've taken that away from me. One of the brass guys, you know,
Really?
he finally said,
the phone's
"Well, knock it off with the
The
stick,
consultants
okay?"
didn't like it, eh?
Yeah.
They didn't like it.
They didn't like it. The next day, all those cards and letters were coming in
Yes.
and all that sort of stuff, you know.
What do they
And you hear about these things happening, but they said, okay, I guess the people want it, so there it is. There's your stick. Stick with it.
There you go. Some of the other shticks that Bill has, for example, the tie. Is that your Matheson
That's the
tartan?
Matheson. I always wear that for good luck.
That's good. You
You
got a
also
few
have
other
something
good luck
else.
charms
Yes,
on there.
Red socks.
we
I
look
always
here.
gotta have
There
red
we
socks.
go.
Not superstitious at all.
No.
I got that from my grandmother, my Highland grandmother, and she was the most, oh, Lord, superstitious person I've ever seen. So naturally, I said, well, I hope I don't end up like that.
No.
But, you know, I find myself, you know, spilling the salt.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Gordon and I have a little routine. We do
Oh, yeah.
dance
You
just
guys
before
do a
every
routine.
show.
If we don't
so
do it, the whole show goes
we'll
down.
have to do it. You know, you talk about the stick. You know, it looks easy. No. Bill's trademark over the years is the trusty weather stick, and around here we call it Bill's bang stick.
Bang stick.
Bang stick.
Yeah. Now, Bill has moved down pat, as you've seen night after night, but as Linda and I and a few others, we took a chance and found out, it's just not as easy as it
Oh no,
looks.
check this out.
And this is the weather for this evening. Good evening. Happy retirement.
Hey, thanks for the memories, Bill. It's me, Chris, remember? Thanks for the memories. It's been fun.
Bill, have a happy retirement from the boys from the firehouse. You're fired.
Bye.
Good evening. This stupid thing there. Hey, Bill, keep your eye on those Idaho potatoes. That's the weather for this evening. Good evening.
Bill, this one is for you. That's the weather for this evening. Good evening.
See, Bill, you don't have to put up with these bananas anymore. Congratulations, happy retirement. And that's the weather for this evening.
Gonna miss you, buddy. This is for all your mother lows and your Idaho highs and your Siberian, whatever that was, your Siberian. That's the weather for this evening. Good evening. You know,
It's in the wrist. You gotta have it in the wrist.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's right.
You know, we just about took each other's eyes out with that stick. You've run through a few of those sticks over the years.
Workers' compensation right there.
Yeah.
Well, we have to do something about that.
You know, it's not just the stick, though. It's also, you know, you're one of the few guys left, I think, that actually write on the old weatherboard.
Well, when I was in Paris on that contest you were so happy and delighted to tell me all about, I understood that, now where am I? I was talking about something.
You're talking about when you're writing on the
an
board.
actual map, and you're actually with your Jiffy marker writing
I
on
was
the
the
board.
only one out of 71 people that were in on that contest, and they all had, like I was saying, all this, all kinds of machinery,
You see, that's
gadgetry,
the
and
mark
everything.
of a true pro, because you don't need all the gizmos and gadgets and things that
Well, it's very kind of you to say so for a lot of people, but as you, but I feel that's the way it's for my purposes.
You've done a fabulous job.
Well, you know, in just a few minutes, Bill's farewell forecast is straight ahead, and it really is a bittersweet moment for all of us here.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everyone at ITV present and past, we thought it only fitting to invite just some of your friends to the studio tonight to witness this very special occasion.
All right.
Here we go.
Here we go.
I might have known.
Oh, yeah, there you go. This is the pipes and drums from the Edmonton Police Service. All right, don't go away. We're going to be right back.
Honestly, Ryan, I think tonight I can approach the weather map with joy.
And dignity.
And dignity.
Go to it.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. All right, let's take a look now at our satellite weather map, and it really is a beauty, a joy to behold.
Well, the next couple of days makes it happy for you to be a weatherman, I would imagine.
Yes, I feel quite happy about it.
You know the old saying, time flies when you're having fun. My, how time has flown. But it was very, very difficult all the years that we worked together, Maddie, not to have fun when you were around. The very, very best to you, to your entire family, and lots more fun in the future. Been great working with you, Maddie.
I'm Tara Nelson on the wet coast. Bill, if you could forecast some of that great Alberta sunshine for us before you go, we'll take it. Congratulations on many successful years at ITV. Have a wonderful retirement. You'll be greatly missed.
Over the years, we get comfortable with various people we watch on television. I always felt comfortable with Walter Cronkite. He was sort of like a trusted member of the family who showed up every evening at supper time. I like the 60 Minutes crew. One of my favorite local characters has been the effervescent ITV weatherman, Bill Matheson. Now, if you've ever met him in person, you know he's the same fellow off the air as he is on the air. Always up and happy and bright and just bursting with trivia. No one can say it like Bill. The most dreaded of all meteorological phenomenons, the Siberian high. See, I told you nobody can say it like Bill. But now Bill, after a long career, has decided to hang up the weather marker. I'm going to miss that disarming Matheson grin and the flyaway hair and the ring of the weather stick against the cement floor. But here's to a long and enjoyable retirement, Bill. Gather ye rosebuds while you may, for who knows what darkling shadows may appear when we least expect them. None of us knows what the future holds, but as Bill would say, man proposes and God disposes. Happy retirement, Bill, and whatever you do, keep your eye on the Idaho high. I'm Bob Layton.
Congratulations. congratulations on your retirement. I can't believe that after 100...
Bill, after all these years, it's hard to believe we won't be seeing you in front of the weather map. Here's wishing you all the very, very best in your retirement. You will be sorely missed.
I worked with Bill back in the early to mid-'80s here at ITV. I did sports, and one of the most frequently asked questions I received when I was out in the field, you know, talking to the viewers was not what are the Eskimos going to do or what are the Oilers going to do this year, but what's Bill Matheson really like? And so the short answer to that is what you see is what you get on TV. He's as fun to be around in person as he is on TV. He's upbeat and he's positive and he's real fun to be around. So I'm going to miss that, and I'm going to miss seeing him on TV. Bill, you made more of an impact on people than I think you realize. So congratulations on your retirement. And one thing I won't miss, though, is the Siberian High. And as a tribute, maybe we should rename that Idaho High the Matheson Masterpiece or something like that in the future. But all the best, Bill, and good luck in your retirement.
But look at this. What monster is this come shambling forth to be born? Like the flowers of spring, tra-la, it is gone. All day we faced the barren wastes, and not a drop of water.
Such lovely words of poetry, Bill.
Oh, thank you very much, yeah.
Oh, it's great.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good job.
We got such a great crowd here, all Bill's friends here, wishing him well.
No, this is really fun. We're having a great time tonight.
And you know, this is it, Bill. It's the time we've been talking about for weeks. It's finally here.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Matheson's farewell forecast. Take it away, Bill.
No pressure, Bill.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Everything I ever do after this will seem anticlimactic, but thank you very much, you guys.
Have a good one.
What do you think people would be interested in, where all these things we talk about are located? As a slight change.
Sure, how about some of your favorite places on the weather map?
All right.
We're wondering if there's going to be any fog tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
there's
that'll
no
never
fog
happen.
tomorrow. Did you say there was going to be fog tomorrow?
No, I was going to ask
I
you.
think he did.
Ladies and gentlemen, every time I forecast fog, and this fella here says no, it won't. Listen to him.
From
He's
now
always
on.
right.
I will be the new weatherman here at ITV.
Okay, well, on our old weather map here tonight, we got what we call a series of low pressure areas there, there, and there. And they all come from this big low pressure area, which we rejoice to call the Mother Low. The Mother Low is always there, and she's always, giving out with these smaller little low pressure areas all the way across. But what it does nicely is generate wind, a westerly wind here. And you know what that happens around into here? We get a Chinook. That is why we only got up to 0 in Edmonton today. And down here in the southern end of the province, in Lethbridge and in Matheson, they got up to +7. And it looks that's the way it's going to be again tomorrow. It's going to be windy. But luckily, because of the changes that have been made on the weather and the way they farm and everything, we don't get those dreaded black blizzards that used to just, cut everything down. Because the sun didn't shine. It wasn't anything like that at all. It was just a real bad place to be in. And that is not a factor any longer, because as a matter of fact, we are going to look now at the satellite map and see what we can find there. The satellite map is very interesting because there's that low we're always talking about. There you have it there, going around and counterclockwise, right? Counterclockwise. And then the clouds are being shoveled over here. And when they do that, they're going to be cloudy. But they seem to be awfully dry. Very dry indeed. And they're not going to be doing much so far as precipitation is concerned. Maybe little bits in Saskatchewan and all, but that's about all. And now, to get right down to it, here's what's going to happen tonight. We're looking for an overnight low of -5. And tomorrow we're looking for a high of -3. And Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, look at that. Not much going on. It's sort of as if the weather and everything has reached an area where everybody is at peace with everybody else. And I thank you very much, that's it. And for the last time here at ITV, I'm pleased to tell you that that's the weather for this evening. Good evening. happening? Okay, well, we'll be turning this over to younger hands so they can do it as they love. The old stick.
It'll never be the same, Bill. It'll never be the same.
All right, thanks so much, Bill. And just once again, I want to remind everyone to stay with us as we have something really special coming up that you're just not going to want to miss.
Yeah, more special. Now, Bill, you've touched a lot of people, and many wanted to say thanks. We've been showing those messages all week, and now here is someone else to say best wishes, Bill.
Bill, life in Edmonton and northern Alberta is not going to be the same without you. How are we going to live without your nightly weather forecast? You've brought many days of warmth and some cold days into the hearts of all your viewers. Bill, you're one of the world's greatest weathermen, and I wish you and your family many, many years of health and happiness in your retirement.
Well, since I had the pleasure of first meeting Bill back in 1973, he not only has educated and informed and entertained me, but he has inspired me. You know, they say he's the Dean of Alberta Weathermen, but he's more than that. He's the Dean of all the great guys I've ever worked with. All the best to you, Rakeldefelder.
This person's on retirement, eh?
Yes.
He's a good friend of yours. That's how you
He was
started.
my idol.
And that's how you started out.
As a weatherman at Red Deer. I got so good at it.
Keep it up. You'll be back.
I will. I used to anticipate flakes in Red Deer, so they paired me with you. Very good. No, I'll tell you, Bill, in all seriousness, and Don would echo this because he watches, swear to God, we go home for a few pops after the early game on Hockey Night in Canada. We sit and watch the second game of the doubleheader. We flip through in the commercial, see if anything good's on TV, and when we stop at the Weather Channel, Don always says, isn't that amazing? That person can go on and on like that by themselves for 3 or 4 minutes. True, you do respect David Letterman started, but I was a kid in Red Deer. I was a junkie for you, Bill. I'm afraid to admit it, but I even listened to the Bill and Bill show religiously from 11 to 2 on CJCA, and you were the star of that. I used to always make fun of the guy that called in with the birds in the background. And then I would watch you do the weather on television, and you would talk about the trowel or trough of warm air aloft, and you'd give all these great instructions on not just what the weather would be, but how the whole thing worked. And I tried to incorporate that when I did the weather at CKRD in Red Deer. And I guess if I was doing a coach's corner, I was going to end on a little pun. You worked ITV, Don works for me TV. The thing I would say, based on that Too Many Men on the Ice, is the thing that you both have in common is math is his sin, and you're Matheson.
Now, I told you last night that it wasn't going to freeze. Well, I was wrong. I was wrong. We're going to have a bad weekend. I don't think there'll be a great deal of snow, a great deal of rain. And I've got to make a complete confession about this. I said those clouds were all going to go up that way. Well, they don't. There you are. You can't call them all.
Well, you know, it's kind of hard to tell a story about Bill. It's even kind of hard to say 10 stories about Bill. We spent 17 years together looking at each other. I probably know him about as well as I know his wife or my wife. But I'll tell you one thing. Bill, you always came to work prepared to work. You're always happy and always friendly. Even though you didn't always know everything, and sometimes I did know the odd thing, I really enjoyed those 17 years. And after, how many years have you been broadcasting? 105? There's 2 things I want you to remember as you enter your retirement. First, remember the Alamo. And second, remember, you were born the same year as the Queen. Okay? Don't forget.
That was a good radio show, too, the Bill and Bill show.
Interesting question, Bill. You did radio in your career and you've done television. Did you have a preference?
Yeah, I've always preferred the map over anything.
Yeah.
Just a ham at heart.
I wish we could get this audience down there every night, too. And here, ladies and gentlemen, the Siberian High!
Yeah.
See what I mean?
It's like your built-in cheering.
Yeah, you got him in the palm of your hand.
Well, Bill, it wasn't that long ago that another great one retired. And when Wayne Gretzky hung up his skates, he was honored in a very special way here.
Yeah, remember that? We took his jersey. They raised it up to the rafters over at Skyreach, and we thought we'd do something kind of similar. You've been using the weatherboard since the beginning here at ITV, as we were talking about. You write on it, and the old map.
Good afternoon. We begin today today's newscast with some very sad news. An Alberta broadcasting legend has passed away. Bill Matheson, the longtime ITV weatherman, died last night in Lethbridge at the age of 80. Bill spent more than 20 years bringing you the weather on ITV from 1976 until his retirement in '99. He was also a longtime fixture on radio in our city at both CJCA and at Ched Radio. Global's Gord Steinke joins us now from the newsroom. And Gord, you had a chance to work with Bill for several years. He truly was one of a kind.
Oh, he sure was, and we still miss him here, Shay. I worked with him about over 7 years, I guess, and he really knew how to light up this newsroom. I'll tell you that. He always came in singing show tunes or reciting poetry. He was just such a strong personality, and Bill was one of those rare personalities who was able to take something like just as basic as a radio talk show or a TV weather segment and transform it into a performance. And his career all started back in Lethbridge, and before coming to our city in the 70s, he even spent some time as a weatherman at the ABC TV station in New York City. Well, today, Bill is being remembered by many right across our province, including Gord Whitehead of Ched Radio, who first met Bill in Lethbridge back in 1973.
The memories I have of him are all good ones, and certifiably the #1 character I've ever met in this business. Nobody comes, well, Brian Hall might come a close second, but Matty, sort of holds the standard up there, and the kind of guy that just never had a bad day, and if you were feeling a little down in the dumps, all you had to do was spend 5 minutes with him, and you felt better, because he was always laughing, always looked on the bright side, super intelligent man, very well read, eccentric, gregarious, all of the things. Taught me how to drink scotch. I mean, he's one of my all-time favorite people.
Bill was the same way right here at the TV station. I'll always remember his laughter, and you could hear him arriving each day, as I said, because he's generally laughing about something, or like those Broadway show tunes that he loves so well. And how he quoted all of Shakespeare, I have no idea. It all stuck in his head, and he would pull these things out at the most opportune times. So some of Bill's favorite weather expressions, really became figures of speech for many Edmontonians. You're going to remember these, I'm sure, from Keep Your Eye on the Idaho High, remember that one, to the most dreaded of all meteorological phenomena, the Siberian Low. And like those sayings, Bill, of course, will never be forgotten.
No, gather ye rosebuds while ye may.
Another good one, yeah. There's so many of them, It brings back great memories.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Thanks, Gord.
You bet.
Last time here at ITV, I'm pleased to tell you that that's the weather for this evening.
A much beloved Edmonton personality has passed away. Longtime former weatherman Bill Matheson died in Lethbridge last night at the age of 80. Good afternoon. Edmonton has lost a broadcasting icon. The staff here at Global, formerly ITV, are remembering a friend and former colleague, the incomparable Bill Matheson.
Good evening, everyone. The Idaho High, of course, is the thing we always look at on the weather map because it always guarantees.
Bill was dubbed the Dean of Weather. He informed and entertained Edmontonians for 20 years in his unique low-tech style with a felt pen and erasable weather map. In 1995, Bill Matheson was named the best weathercaster in the world at a conference in Paris.
Bill Matheson, ITV Canada.
Bill retired from ITV News nearly 7 years ago on November 24th, 1999, with a grand studio send-off that included a serenade from the Edmonton Police Pipes and Drums. Some of us were lucky enough to share the airwaves with Bill. Gord joins us from the Global Newsroom with reaction to Bill's passing. Gord, it was never a dull moment working with Bill.
I know it's a sad day, but I can't help but smiling when I see those pictures. He's such a great guy. We worked together for over 7 years, and every day I learned something from Bill. For one thing, he never complained.
That's right.
He never had a bad day. He was never depressed. Never had a bad word to say about anybody. That was just amazing guy. And he kept the newsroom entertained. He'd come waltzing in here, right past where I'm sitting right now, singing Broadway show tunes. And of course, who can forget, he could sure turn a phrase, eh? Keep your eye on the Idaho High, or the one I was thinking about earlier was gather ye rosebuds while ye may. I mean, he had so many of them. But real trigger little sentences that he had in phrases.
He was great. He touched so many people.
Oh, I know.
You talked to some of his friends and former colleagues today. What did they say about him?
Well, pretty much the same thing. I talked to some of his old buddies and radio colleagues today. 6:30 Ched's Brian Hall and Gord Whitehead looked back very fondly with a lot of smiles on their time spent with Matty, as he's known by his friends.
From a broadcaster standpoint, technically, one of the worst broadcasters you'd ever meet. I mean, he didn't know anything about a cue or reading a commercial or anything, but his natural personality shone through unlike anybody I've ever met.
And he always, had the story and everything. Hi, Brian. How you doing? And was not a quiet person. He was, he was somewhat loud. I mean, you always knew when Maddie was around.
Am I hearing that right? Did Brian Hall, was he actually describing another broadcaster as loud?
Yeah, I think that's the case.
I can't even believe that, but you can tell everybody spoke so highly of him. And you know what? Bill would be laughing right now. I know he would. We all have lots of fond memories of Bill from the old ITV days. So, Linda, I know you worked with him just as much as I did. What was yours?
Oh, I don't know. I spent about 4 years working with Bill, and I have to say his farewell party in the studio was really special.
Wasn't that something?
We had friends and former colleagues and just regular viewers that came in and wanted to see Bill off, and we had the Edmonton Pipes and Drums Band. They were delighted to be asked to come into the studio and come in and serenade Bill. We looked at blooper tapes, we raised his weather map, we raised a glass of champagne. That was a really special night.
It was, and you know how emotional it must have been, because, Bill, he was putting a cap on 40 years in broadcasting here at our studios. And you know what? He just got through it like a true professional. I was a little choked up. I remember talking to him before this whole that whole retirement party started, and he was fantastic. He was an ultimate consummate showman.
And he was one of a kind. There'll never be anyone like him again.
You got that right, for sure. All right, now coming up on the news hour, I just want to mention, I'm going to have more on Bill's life and career, and you're going to hear more, of course, about the Dean of Weather from his old friends and his colleagues.
All right, thanks a lot, Gord.
You're welcome.
Bill Matheson is survived by his wife, Carmen Cole, 5 children and 10 grandchildren. A celebration of his life will be held at McKillop United Church in Lethbridge. And still to come in the early news, former ITV anchor Doug Main will join us to share more memories about Bill's life and career. The Weather Board. It's a sad day for staff here at Global. Formerly ITV, the much beloved Dean of Weather, Bill Matheson, has passed away in his home city of Lethbridge at the age of 80. We're joined now by a familiar face to many former ITV and Global viewers. Doug Main was the original anchor at ITV. And Doug, this, in fact, is the very last weather map that Bill wrote on, scribbled on. It was raised up to the ceiling that night. What's your reaction, first of all, to hearing about his passing?
Well, it's sad when someone who is as loved and cherished as Bill Matheson was by so many goes, but it's an opportunity for us to reflect on the contribution he made, not just to Edmonton, but to national weather, international weather, I guess, for that matter, with his awards and all the rest of it. Just a wonderful guy.
How do you define his contribution? Because he really was one of the last broadcast icons, I think.
He was a bit of a Luddite. I mean, weather today is all Doppler this and satellite the other thing, and he was a, felt pen and a map guy. Mm-hmm. But what he was able to do with those two things and his wooden stick was teach so many people about what weather is, what happens, why it matters, how this works, circulation around a high and the Idaho high and the Siberian low and all the stuff that he did and all his little mannerisms and his little vocabulary of special words that he had. He taught so many people about what was really going on, and they didn't even realize it. He was a huge factor in Edmonton television for so many years.
Yeah, it was low tech. Some people say it was no tech. This is one of the infamous weather sticks.
Well, he went through he was a Luddite right from the outset. When they started talking about satellite maps and all the rest, no, I just want my felt pen and my stick. And, with a piece of wood and a felt pen and a thing on the wall. He did it. And I think people learned more about the weather and got engaged with what was going on way more than they did, despite the fact now you got $1 million sets and all the...
The technology didn't get in the way.
No, well, there was no technology. I mean, what's a piece of plywood and a stick, that's...
But even as we moved toward showing the radar systems and what have you, Bill stuck to his old way of doing things, and people loved it.
He really did, and I was producing the show at the time, and we were working together, and they began to introduce all this stuff. We got to have this, we got to have that. And, the only time I ever saw Bill irritated, and I mean, we worked together every day, 5 days a week for, I don't know, a dozen years or whatever it was. The only time I ever really saw him irritated or resistant or with his back up a little bit was the advent of all this technology stuff.
Yeah.
Every day he came in, he was happy, had a joke, a smile, always gregarious. And what you saw on TV was like what you saw
in the pre-production meetings and afterwards and all the time wherever you saw him. So this was the only thing that he didn't really embrace it all that well.
Yeah, he was such a colorful character too. I remember one of the stories about Bill was that, we had to wear radio mics, little packs attached to your pants. Bill would often drive home with his.
Yeah.
Have to send it back in a cab. What would people be surprised to know about Bill Matheson, do you think?
I think they'd be surprised to know that he wasn't putting on an act on TV. I mean, people think that, but, when you do it day after day after day after day, and it's just you out there talking to the folks, that's you. You can't fake that. And he didn't. He was as real as the day is long. And, of course, people in Edmonton had the benefit of, for a lot of those years, hearing him on the radio in the morning and then seeing him do the weather in the evening. So they really got to know Bill, and all the stuff that they thought about Bill and all the stuff that they saw and heard, that was him.
Yeah, and that's why we loved him, because he was real.
Pure Bill.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for joining us, Doug.
Thanks, Linda.
We'll be right back.
For the last time here at ITV, I'm pleased to tell you that that's the weather for this evening.
Before we go, we'd like to hear from you. What is your favorite memory of Bill? Leave us a voicemail at 989-4685, a fax to 4686, or send us an email to feedbackedmonton@globaltv.com. At Matheson, we'll miss him.
There are darkling shadows moving on the weather map tonight, ladies and gentlemen. That dreaded of all meteorological phenomenon, the Siberian high. Why, you ask? Because over here, we have nothing but a great, big, fat, avuncular, high-pressure area. We gather ye rosebuds while ye may.
Well, my pretty, and you out there, too. You probably think the weather's going to get warmer. Well, it's not.
Very interesting. But strange. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our weather for this evening. Boo!
Weather forecast for over 20 years from these studios, Bill Matheson became a household name. Bill was born in Lethbridge in 1926. His mother died when he was 10, leaving Bill to help raise his siblings. During World War II, when he was 17, Bill joined the Army, eventually becoming a paratrooper. After the war, Bill's broadcast career started as a reporter at a radio station in Lethbridge. But soon, television came calling, and as they say, the rest is history.
All I had to do was mention a few highs and lows and cold fronts and warm fronts and all this paraphernalia, and they said, hey, this guy's good.
With his witty banter and down-home style, it wasn't long before the well-read and charming broadcaster made his way to Edmonton. He teamed up with another Bill, Bill Jackson, for the Bill and Bill radio show.
His time spent with Bill Jackson on the 11 to 2 show. You never knew what they were going to do next. Anything went. They just go in there and wing it for 3 hours every day. And that's hard to do. That's hard to do. It takes a special talent.
He'd hear about something and he'd have an opinion on it and he'd throw it in and then he'd laugh with everybody and got far, and gotta go, and away he'd go. So, yeah, he was a good guy.
In 1976, Bill brought his colorful style back to television, to the new kid on the block, ITV. It was the beginning of a long and beautiful relationship.
The interesting thing about Bill was that what you saw on television was exactly the same in person, and you don't run into that very much. He was gregarious, outspoken, he would sing show tunes, he would shout hello to everybody, he would dance around the newsroom, he would make up words and make up languages, which is exactly what he did on television.
As TV technology rapidly changed, Bill snubbed the high-tech gadgets and fancy graphics. He stuck to what he knew best, a weather map and a felt pen, all presented with his trademark flamboyant style. Bill sure knew how to turn a phrase
As it comes crunching down like the car of Juggernaut.
And night after night, we all tuned in to see what he'd scribble on his map.
I've already called him a diabolical dozy-do.
Over the years, Bill was recognized time and time again for his work.
Bill Matheson, ITV Canada.
His colleagues even voted him best weathercaster in the world in Paris in 1995. He used the occasion to send back reports to Edmonton. His cameraman says Bill was having a ball.
So we went everywhere, and we went everywhere on foot or train or taxi,
because Paris, you just can't. It was crazy there. But and he was a trooper. I mean, even back then, he had just had cataract surgery, I think, and so was having a little trouble with his eyesight. So I always told people it was sort of like going on an assignment with your grandfather.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you what. This is the only show in the world where you'll ever find people phoning in to ask about the numbers on the Chiclets box.
Back home in Edmonton, when most guys his age were well into their retirement, Bill was the busiest man in show business. By day, he hosted his own #1 radio show on Chant. And at night, he continued to entertain and inform his TV audiences.
She gets too hungry.
By the late 90s, after more than 45 years in broadcasting, Bill decided it was time for a swan song. He retired in November 1999. It was a party fit for a king, live on ITV News. And then, in front of a huge crowd of well-wishers, including 2 of his biggest fans who happened to sneak in, Bill gave us his final forecast. And then, his famous weather board was raised to the rafters, never to be used again. So, a fond farewell to one of the best. Cheers to Bill Matheson.
For the last time here at ITV, I'm pleased to tell you that that's the weather for this evening. Good evening.
Bill also worked in the U.S. in the early 70s. He was lured out of Lethbridge to become the weatherman for the ABC station in New York City. Now, he stayed there for just over a year before coming back home to Alberta. Again, Bill Matheson, the Dean of Weather, has passed away at the age of 80. He's survived by his wife, Carmen Cole, 5 children and 12 grandchildren. A celebration of his life will be held at the McKillop United Church in Lethbridge on Saturday at 3 in the afternoon. A little later on the news hour, we'll take a look back at some of Bill's on-air antics over the years.
In 20 years, Bill Matheson delivered his weather forecast to Albertans with his own brand of charm and humor. Bill passed away, of course, last night at the age of 80, and we leave you tonight with some of the moments that made the Dean of Weather so special. Good night.
There are darkling shadows moving on the weather map tonight, ladies and gentlemen. That dreaded above meteorological phenomenon, the Siberian high. Why, you ask? Because over here, we have nothing but a great, big, flat, avuncular, high-pressure area. We gather ye rosebuds while ye may.